I'll introduce myself. I'm Raziq Brown. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. Currently living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, working for the Central Eastern Region as their Youth and Young Adult Coordinator. Today, the title of this workshop is Kids and Their Apps. I purposely made that title kind of innocuous, so it'd keep folks who think they knew everything out of the room. Because what this conversation is about is getting you to think about apps and communications with your youth in a totally different way. And so that's why the title of this projection screen is It's Bigger Than Twitter. All right, so first off, I want to just get to know everyone real quick. Where's everyone from? Starting with you, Sam.
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Schenectady.
Schenectady.
Canton.
Excuse me?
Canton.
Canton.
Syracuse.
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 I'm Dee and I'm from Schenectady.
Schenectady. Meg, where are you from?
Rochester.
Rochester?
Rochester.
Rochester? You too?
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Okay. I imagine everyone in this room has a cell phone, maybe? Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah? Everyone in this room, do you have a cell phone with like app capabilities and 4G and whatnot? Yeah, okay. Well, that's just the way of the world now, isn't it? We all have smartphones. Even our kids have smartphones. My nephew, who is all of 7 now, Jesus, who's all of 7, knows how to use social networking apps better than I do. Like, he's always sending me cool, funny, like, usually it's animal videos. That's the thing that the little kids really like. And a conversation I find myself having with my sister all the time is she's like, you know, I gotta take that thing away from him eventually, because there's just too much stuff on there. There's just so much of the world that's open to him that he can access, and I don't know what he's doing. Has anyone else in this room ever felt that way a little bit? Okay. So, it's bigger than Twitter. When we talk about this stuff, we usually start talking about Twitter and Facebook and things like that. But I want us to take a step away from the apps first, and I want us to talk about the idea of watching. Let's talk about valence. Now, I'm going to pull up a TED Talk video. Steve Mann, he's a researcher and inventor who, I guess, one of the things he's most famous for is helping create the Google Glass. Does anybody remember that short-lived invention? Right?
Oh, the eye thing?
Mm-hmm, the eye thing.
Yeah.
How many people were bothered by the eye thing? Right? How many people are kind of bothered by the idea that like just someone could be walking around just filming you all the time?
They do it anyway. They can't make
What if they already do it? What if they already do it anyway, don't they? Now, Steve is about to talk for a minute, or Mr. Mann is about to talk for a minute. He's a huge nerd, okay? He believes we'll all turn into cyborgs one day, and I'm not on that train yet, but he does have some interesting things to say about cameras and watching.
At the U.S. consulate, when I was picking up my daughter's passport, I was both required to enter to get it, but also forbidden from entry. You see, electronic devices are not allowed in the U.S. consulate, but I am an electronic device. You know, by my mere existence, I'm existential contraband. So I would go in there, and I would see there's all these cameras. You know, in any of these government buildings or businesses or department stores where cameras are forbidden, they say no cameras, but I walk in and see, oh, there's a camera over there, there's another one over there, there's another one over there. And they say, oh, but those are surveillance cameras. Those are not cameras. So then I said, well, I guess my seeing aid is not allowed. But what if I put a transmitter on my camera and transmit the video to the police station, and I work together with the police so that they can use my glass to find suspects. They can see out through my glass and track down suspects. Then my seeing aid would become a surveillance camera, and that would make it no longer be a camera.
Huge nerd.
So I looked at the definition of surveillance. Surveillance comes from two parts, the sur part and the valence part. Sur means from above or over, as in surtax or surcharge. And valence means watching. from the French word veiller, which means to watch. Surveillance is a watch kept over someone or something, especially over a suspect or prisoner. For example, the suspects were under police surveillance. If you don't like French, the closest English word is oversight. My 6-year-old made this nice little drawing. Surveillance and surveillance. Surveillance is the opposite of surveillance, as in sous chef. And my kids asked me, my daughter in the audience here, and my younger daughter who drew this drawing, asked me, they said, "Daddy, why is it that buildings have more rights than people? Why is it that buildings are allowed to wear cameras that people are not? Why is it that cars are allowed to wear cameras? You see, you can have a dash cam, a dashboard camera in your car, and you can drive into a movie theater. A theater owner would never say, oh, your car's not allowed to wear a camera in this movie theater."
All right. So he goes on to make a larger point about how everyone should be wearing cameras and how everyone should be allowed to wear cameras everywhere to protect themselves. And he makes a pretty good point. Like, for example, he'll later talk about how police will selectively use videos to incriminate people, as do stores, right? And so people should have that right to also use their own video. So he talks about surveillance. Let me see here. He talks about surveillance and surveillance. So he talks about surveillance and surveillance, and now a new term is coming up called coveillance, we are already living in a society in which we are always being watched, and we are always watching, and also we are always self-reporting. So coveillance is the idea of reciprocal vision and supervision, combining surveillance with aggressively effective surveillance, scrutiny from below, not the top. Now, why do I bring this up? I'm not a libertarian, I'm not here to tell you to go out and be afraid of the government. What I want to talk about, though, is that I think this is a futurist term, but I think we already live in a covalent society. It's not so much that we have folks watching us all the time, but our youth, and even us, we're always self-reporting our lives. Turn on the TV any given day, Kanye West, Donald Trump, whoever is reporting about their lives to millions of people, right? And then millions of people have something to say. So with all that in mind, let's talk about sexting. Who knows what sexting is? All right, someone tell me. Why don't you tell me what sexting is? Tina, yes.
Yes, sexting would be to send sexually provocative or explicit messages to one's friends or partners or enemies, depending on how one is using it.
That's a good definition. That's exactly what it says on the screen. Now, there are different types of sexting. According to Pew Research, there is the exchange of images solely between two romantic partners. There are the exchange between partners that are shared with others outside the relationship. Oops.
Sorry. My kid from the front door, I'll be right back.
And exchanges between people who are not yet in a relationship, but where at least one person hopes to be. Right, advertising. My cousin who is online my youngest cousin who's just ventured into the world of online dating. She just got into college. Is just like, why won't these guys stop sending me pictures of their you know what? And I'm like, they're horrible. I don't know what to tell you. But there's an interesting conversation to be had with sexting in particular, and that's the conversation about privacy. Right? Now, classically, right, what I was taught when all this started going up, like, I remember when the only way I could send my junk to a woman back in the day is I'd have to add a camera, put it on a computer. It was so much work, it wasn't even worth doing, right? Like, you gotta get a camera, you gotta upload it, you gotta wait for the internet, and somebody else has to delve. It's not that, I didn't have to do that. Now, it's half a thought. Literally pull your phone out, boom, done, it's sent. It's gone. And once you've sent it, right, is that privacy, do you still have a right to privacy now that you've sent that picture out there? Right? And there are court cases happening right now about this. Right? And right now, what's even more interesting are the legal issues. Sexting is generally legal if all parties are over the age of majority and images are sent with consent and knowledge. However, any type of sexual message that both parties have not consented to can constitute a sexual harassment. So, I don't think here's a situation that's pretty common. I'm dating someone. I send my picture to that person. You know, I thought it's something nice for Valentine's Day. then like a year later, me and this person have broken up. This person hates me, and then I'm on Jezebel or something, and I see a picture of myself. Oh God. I didn't mean for her to share that to everyone, but I did send it to her, and now it's her picture, and she owns it. And I didn't sign any contract with her saying that you're the only person who could look at this. You know, I didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement. That'd be interesting, right? If every person before they sent to sex had to send a non-disclosure agreement.
Sexy.
That would be. I think it would actually help out a lot of guys because once the guy sends off that non-disclosure, the girl could respond, "No, thank you."
That somebody needs to make that app.
Yeah,
That's
right.
an app that includes the non-disclosure.
The
Sorry,
non-
go ahead.
Now you know how to make your millions.
Now, the legal issues get even more tricky when we start talking about youth, because youth are not over the age of consent, right? So sexting that involves minors over the age of consent, sending an explicit photograph of themselves or to a romantic partner of the same age can be illegal in countries where anti-child pornography laws require all participants in pornographic media to be over the age of majority. Some teenagers who have sexted photographs of themselves or of their friends or partners have been charged with distribution of child pornography, while those who have received the images have been charged with possession of child pornography. In some cases, the possession charge has been applied to school administrators who have investigated sexting incidents as well, and the images involved in sexting are usually different in both nature and motivation from the type of content that anti-child pornography laws were created to address. Makes sense. Two kids in love, while kids in love sending pictures to each other is not the same thing as a child pornography ring. However, we don't have laws to address this yet. There are several cases right now where, in 2010, a 12-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy in Chicago were charged with child pornography. In Fayetteville, North Carolina, same thing happened with some 16-year-olds. Last year, 14-year-old boys in New York's Long Island were arrested on felony child porn charges after one was accused of recording the other having sex with a girl. As many as 20 other students at the school were suspended for either sending or watching the video. And also last year, students in Greenbrier, Tennessee, this was a big one, actually, I remember seeing this in the news. They were all swapping their sex pictures. Teacher found out, they all got kicked out of school. So what do, right? We can't stop. I think our first reaction, right, is to say, well, we just got to get these kids to stop sexting. But that's almost like us saying, well, we've got to get these kids to stop having sex. I mean, we can try really hard, we can put laws in place and we can talk to folks, right? But at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do. Let's move on, let's talk about cyberbullying. Anybody heard of cyberbullying before? All right, who wants to, instead of me reading from the page, who wants to tell me what cyberbullying is? I'm going to choose you, Carol.
Ooh, I'm going to say that it's utilizing social media to violate or share negative things about another person.
Yeah.
In the intent of hurting them.
Right.
The intent of, possibly hurting them.
That's exactly what it is. It's just bullying online. So some cyberbullying facts. It's not just isolated. It used to be this was a thing that happened in school. Now it happens everywhere. You don't have to be in school to get cyberbullied. Adults get cyberbullied. 43% of teens, though, have been reported being victims of cyberbullying. According to the research from the National Crime Prevention Council, almost 20% of the teens have had a cyberbully pose as someone else in order to trick them in line, and the intensity can be unbearable for victims. Has anyone ever heard of the term catfishing? Anyone want? Julie, why don't you tell us what catfishing is?
So catfishing is when you're talking to somebody online who's pretending to be someone other than who they are. So if they say like, oh, I'm that guy at school that you like, but they're actually some, a frenemy, if you want to throw in another phrase.
That's exactly what it is. One of the more dangerous, so catfishing particularly comes from an MTV movie that came out a few years ago called Catfish. The plot is a man falls in love with what he thinks is a painter, and he goes to find it's a lonely woman who is taking care of her child, her child that has some sort of learning disability. And this was how she was catfishing so she could live a different life than the life she was living. Catfishing becomes very interesting because it's not always just cyberbullying. Sometimes catfishing is done for economic purposes. I know on Facebook I have to delete at least 20 fake people every day because so they can't steal my passwords or whatnot. Sometimes catfishing happens because it's people engaging in creative play. Their life, whatever their life is, right? It's not fulfilling them somehow. There's a book that I suggest everyone reads. It's called Modern Romance by a guy named Aziz Ansari. He's a comedian. Now, the book basically talks about online dating, and you don't have to read it. It's sold as if to help you online date. However, it's a much better book about how people relate online to each other. Steve Mann likes to make the point that one day we will be cyborgs. I think we already are to some extent, where people already live their second lives online. And we might think it's silly, but it's real. Let's see. So here's some horror stories from some bad cyberbullying that's happened over the past years. Ryan Halligan. This was back in the day when AIM was a thing. Ryan thought he'd fallen in love with a girl who liked him, and it turned out to be a bunch of his friends, not even his friends, a bunch of people teasing him. He killed himself. Megan Meyer, same thing, catfished. She was catfished by some neighbors. They were posing to be a boy. The boy dumped her. And then she also committed suicide. Jessica Logan is 18. She sent a nude photo of herself to her boyfriend, and then the boyfriend sent those images out. She's no longer with us. Okay. So this is real. I don't mean to depress you, but this is a real thing that, like, some people, you say the word cyberbullying and they laugh, right? Oh, well, it's just words online. But it's not just words online. I try to tell someone, I was trying to explain this to someone the other day, I don't have my phone on me, but I was like, imagine if someone sent you a message that was the worst thing anyone could ever say about you, right? In a normal one-on-one conversation, all I have to do is walk away from you, and then I can forget you. However, because this is all text and this is all messaging, and because nothing online ever gets deleted, one bad incident, one trip, one fall, one time you might have been a little too drunk gets remembered forever. In the book Modern Romance, Aziz Ansari talks about how there can sometimes even be a cycling where you'll mess up on stage. Everyone records it. 1 year in 2014, it becomes the top hit. It becomes the most watched video on YouTube. Everyone laughs about it. And then it's gone. And you think, okay, that was my 15 minutes of fame. I'm all right. Then 2 years later, the video reemerges and you're going through it all over again. So by the numbers, these are the most popular apps used by everyone. The class of 15, but the most popular apps kids are using on their phone. These don't sound like you all know all of these, right? Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Messenger, Google Apps. A lot of people, when I've done this workshop a couple times, they expect to come in here and for me to tell them about some secret apps that they don't know about. Well, there might be a few, but at the end of the day, teens are still using the same modes of communication that the rest of us are using. They're just sneakier about how they do some of this stuff. So now, here's a scary news story.
So of course you found it on Fox.
Local Fox, not Fox Cable. There's a difference.
teenagers, the digital world of social media and mobile apps continues to become more complex and secretive, which means it's also becoming more difficult for parents to keep tabs because it's likely that you've never heard of many of the apps that are now exploding in popularity in high schools across West Michigan.
Fox 13's Josh Sidorowicz taking a closer look at what you should be watching out for in this special report.
Pop quiz for you parents. If I showed you logos like these, you'd likely know what I was talking about, right? They're the mainstream apps that many of us, young and old, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we've become accustomed to using. But what if I showed you logos like this? Any of them look familiar? Well, if not, consider this your crash course on the apps millions of teens nationwide, including thousands in high schools right here in West Michigan, are now using daily, making it easier than ever for them to share secrets. And as it turns out, well, it's also a secret to most parents, too.
All the time, where I get a parent who just says, I don't know where to begin.
Meet Chris McKenna, dedicating the past 2 years of his life largely to educating parents about a growing secret world right in the palm of their own teens' hands.
The problem is the amount of information and the number of apps and the number of devices is so vast.
More than 70% of teens now have access to a smartphone, and recent data shows about a quarter of them, and growing, are now using these new alternative messaging apps on them. And McKenna says a large part of the draw,
Anonymity is clearly the going trend in apps.
the fact that no one has to know who is saying what.
Whether it's Yik Yak, After School, Whisper is another very popular one where I want to divulge all my secrets or say all kinds of things I would never say to another person. Now you've given them the ability to say whatever they want to whoever they want without any accountability.
Jessica Bonifilio works regularly with parents and teens struggling with social media use and online bullying.
It is going back to the social interaction that a lot of these students need, they crave, and suddenly they get.
She says the popularity of messaging apps is understandable, given a large part of adolescence is feeling the need to connect with others.
We no longer are limited to just the other students who are at our school, but everybody else that we can possibly reach with the push of a button.
So she says the best bet is not to completely cut off your teen's connections, but to support it with limits. And McKenna even recommends narrowing your child's use down to just 3 or 4 approved apps only to make it easier to monitor and learn how they're being used. Even offering up a quiz on his site to help parents determine how in tune they are with their child's app usage.
When you think about it, the issues are the same. Sexual predators are not new. Pornography is not new. Bullying is not new. What's new is that there are different doors to any of these issues.
And developers now acknowledging the growing responsibility they have as well to their young users.
If you try to scroll through, look on any posts, it comes up only for specific students of that school.
Consider apps like After School, now used on more than 75% of high school campuses nationwide. Here in West Michigan, some schools average anywhere between 200 to more than 500 student users.
Every post goes through moderation before a student sees it. That means that it goes through technical moderation, and there are humans that are viewing the post.
After being pulled briefly from the Apple App Store following complaints, After School now says it has a zero-tolerance policy for any bullying or threats, with safeguards built in place to offer quick reporting of misuse.
We want to improve their lives. We don't want to just provide a place where they can, communicate with anyone within their school with no boundaries.
But the app still remains closed to high schoolers only, no parents allowed, which is why McKenna says the dialogue between you and your kids has to remain open.
I'm not going to take the internet out of your hands. It's something you need to learn how to use, and I want you to use it, but understand the power of what you hold in your hands. That one click can radically change your life. And I think those are conversations that a teenager will pay attention to.
And McKenna has a wealth of additional information for parents on his website. You can find a link to that on our website, fox17online.com. In studio, Josh Sidorowicz, Fox 17 News.
Yeah, once you figure them out, they probably get some new ones out there too.
Yeah, I mean, good information, John.
That's exactly what it is. So I show that to I do this presentation for different groups, right? With young adults, I tell them something different. With a room full of people with mostly middle school kids, I would say, yeah, try McKenna's way. Go check out his site. Try to engage because that's sort of the appropriate conversation to be having. But as the news anchor said at the end, and he's right, they'll just create a new one. And so my my workshop is really about getting people to start thinking about creating covenants with their youth about how they want to be online just for the rest of their lives, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's Twitter, whether it's Yik Yak, whether it's whatever. One of my favorite exercises I like to do when it's mostly young people is I say, close your eyes and imagine a new type of social networking. It's a wearable computer that you wear like an armband. And it just lets you, and I can type in my feelings about everyone on my phone. When I walk by them, they can know how I feel about them, right? This is technology that can exist, and some of it kind of does exist, right? Are we going to have a brand new news story saying kids these days are feel bullying, right? Right? Or we got to make sure these kids don't wear their wearables or else they'll feel really bad. No. When we are in this religious community, what we try to do is we try to teach people how to be good people everywhere they are. As Unitarians, we try to teach people how to be good world citizens. And that's sort of where this conversation is, I'm trying to take this conversation is, we talked about surveillance, right? And what you see in the behaviors from teens is the more surveillance that we give them on a particular app, they leave it. And they go find another app that has less surveillance, right? When I talk to my nephew about my older nephews, my teenage nephews about this stuff, I try to tell my sister, don't tell them they can't use, and don't ever say don't use an app. Don't say don't use that app. Say, instead, try it for a week. Tell me what most people are saying that aren't your friends. Don't tell me about what your friends are saying. I don't want to know about your friends. But what do other people on the app say, right? And then what I found is through those conversations, like when I talk to my nephew about YouTube, for example, I'm like, what are most of the people on YouTube like? And he says, they're awful. They're all terrible. They all say the N word, and they all say the B word, and they all say the S word, and they all say the F word. I'm like, right. They are awful. Do you want to be like one of those people? No. How do you want to be? What kind of online persona do you want? And that's the conversation you want. Not, the one picture can change your life thing. That's not going to work anymore. Because, as I like to tell people, by 2025, everyone will have there will be a naked picture of everyone online, right? It doesn't, from President Obama to your janitor, you'll be able to find a naked version of them somewhere. So that's not the sell. Your life will be ruined by one bad tweet. Well, these kids are already going to school with kids whose life gets ruined by one tweet, and then they see them carry on the next day. Let's see here. So now that we've sort of talked about kind of the general ethos, I'm just going to tell you about the different types of apps. Not exactly what specific apps are, but sort of you can know what type, instead of saying, whenever you see a new app come up and you see your team using a new app, instead of asking what's the name of that app, ask them, what kind of app is this? Is it a texting app? Is it a picture app? Is it a ghost app? So texting apps are software that enables messages to be sent and received. Although the term may refer to instant messaging or email software, it often refers to the texting app built into every cell phone and smartphone, or to a third-party app that is used in lieu of the carrier's app. Can anyone name a texting app off the back of their head?
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, great.
Facebook Messenger?
Facebook Messenger. There's Kik. So Kik is a messenger, it's free instant messaging. There's a lot of weird, I have a Kik, and the problem with Kik is child exploitation is very prominent. It's true. You can add sub-apps on Kik, there's a dating sub-app that you can put on Kik, and what will happen is random people will just message you if they're near you, right? People will just say, hey, are you down by on the corner? And I'll say, no, who are you? But that's me. But there are a lot of people out there, there are more young people out there, not just young people, old people too, that are like, I'm bored, yeah, sure, fine. And they'll go down to the corner.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So you talk about how this, in your example, the problem of child exploitation. Is there something specific built into Kik that makes it more likely, or is this sort of true of any of them?
Kik allows, it's the anonymity of Kik. I can create a screen name. Anything that allows you to create a screen name and hide your face is going to have child problems, child exploitation problems. Uvu. Uvu is a video chat instant messaging client. It's pretty popular. WhatsApp. This is actually the largest, most well-used one. I use WhatsApp to contact my relatives in Africa and in South America and Europe, and occasionally I'll get a strange message from some dude named Hazim who's trying to sell me something new.
But it's nice because it's free internet.
It's free internet, right. All right, next you have microblogging sites. Microblogging is a broadcast medium that exists in the form of blogging. A microblog differs from a traditional blog in that its content is typically smaller in both actual and aggregated file size. Microblogs allow users to exchange small elements of content as short sentences, individual messages, video links, which are maybe the reason for their popularity. Anyone can name a microblog. Tumblr.
Like Vine.
Vine. Vine. Facebook can kind of, Facebook.
Twitter, sort of a...
Twitter's sort of, so Twitter's sort of a microblog. Instagram is a big one. More youth are trending towards Instagram and getting off Facebook, even though Facebook owns Instagram, whatever. For me as an adult, I just look at the company, I'm like, oh, it's all going to the same place anyway.
Yeah, but the youth are leaving Facebook because all their parents are there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That surveillance thing. I don't want anyone watching me, right?
As I put everything out online.
Right. As I put everything out online. Because it's that covalence thing. I don't want people watching me except for the stuff I want them to see. And then I also want to see what other people are doing. I think having that explicit conversation of, hey, I think you like covalence. I don't think you mind being watched. There are just some things you don't want me to see. That's fine. Nephew, I don't want to see what you're sending girls either in the middle of the night. That's fine. So Tumblr, Twitter, Vine, shots of me. This was great. This one is being championed by Justin Bieber right now. This was his big anti-bullying Instagram thing. Unfortunately, it took about a month, and the kids figured out a way to start bullying each other with it. All right. So does anyone so this is the part where I like to, I've gone over some apps that everyone has heard of. Does anyone have any personal stories that they'd like to share? Not personally about themselves, but you all work with youth. Does anyone have any scary Facebook, Twitter stories that they'd like to share with the room? Keeping folks anonymous.
Well, not scary exactly, but I think it's really interesting with Instagram, especially. I used to work at a dance studio at the front desk, and all of the girls in the dance studio would have like long breaks in between their classes, so they'd be eating dinner and doing homework supposedly, but they'd just be on Instagram, and they'd want to friend me, and I'm like, I'm not gonna friend you, and then they got really upset that I wouldn't add them. And so I was like, you know what, I don't put anything up there anyway, I'm not their teacher. I was like anyway, I was young enough that I was like, fine, and then when I leave the job, I'll delete them. Like, they're not posting anything. They would have like hundreds and hundreds of likes on their Instagram. And I think something that this covalence thing is doing is, I want you to see what I want you to see, which is what you said, but then not necessarily realizing that everybody else is also putting out what they want you to see.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And then this superficial relationship that you have with people, and they would get really upset, like, I cannot believe she hasn't liked my picture yet, or I can't believe she didn't tag me in that. Like, really, like, huge fights over these apps and this perceived relationship that they're having via the apps.
I would challenge in that it's not a perceived relationship. It's a real relationship.
Okay.
I'm right there with you. I feel like, part of the reason I have this job is because I used to I am on Facebook all the time saying stuff, saying whatever I want on Facebook. But unlike my peers, my peers who I work with, I don't add the youth I work with on Facebook. I like to keep my personal electronic life separate because the relationships I have there are real-esque, right? They're not as real to me because I will say silly things on Facebook and then walk away and say I just put some words on my phone. I don't really attach myself to it as much. But one of the things that Aziz Ansari points out is think about some of your teenagers. They can't drive, right? They can't drive. The adults basically control all of their, as a teen, an adult controls your life for the most part. This is the one space in your life that adults cannot control, where you can actually have real, authentic relationships. Because I can't just stand out in the middle of the street and say, I love Sally! And I want everybody to know I love Sally. You can't do that. Everyone will call you crazy, right? But you can do that. There is now a space for you to do that in this online world. So I'll share a wonderful Facebook story. Let me see how I can do it. So there was a volunteer. There's a volunteer who was sending flirty messages to a youth's mom on Facebook, right? They met through the con community, right? The two adults met through the con community, and they had started being really flirty. And so the adults thinking, I don't think they really understood, they understood how Facebook worked, but didn't think of the full implications. So while they're going back and forth, sending flirty messages on each other's walls.
On the wall, so it's public. They're not
Public.
messaging.
But yeah, it wasn't anything.
Public.
It wasn't anything bad. Like, they weren't sending dirty photos or things, anything like that. But it's like, oh hey, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm great. On each other's wall, right? Meanwhile, their youth mortified, right? Because not everyone and all their friends and their cousins' friends can see it's very, I think what was going on in the house, the mom was like, oh no, I'm not seeing Jeff, why would you think that? Where then she would be communicating with, I'm making up a name obviously, well, she'd be communicating online with Jeff, and then all of her friends would come and say, hey, I think Jeff is hooking up with your mom, right? I think right? Right? And that was just because everyone in the house had kind of imagined themselves to be in their own little world online, forgetting that this affected everyone in the house. So then we have ephemeral messaging, secret apps. The dangerous thing the news was warning you about. Mobile-to-mobile and online transmission of multimedia messages that automatically disappear from recipient screens after the message has been viewed, or multimedia messages that are posted completely anonymously. The word ephemeral describes something that only lasts for a short time. I'm pretty sure everyone knows the big one. Snapchat is the big one. But after Snapchat got into trouble a few times for people, those pictures don't really go away. You send me a picture, I can screenshot it, and now I have the picture. They've changed the way that they do things now. If someone sends me a picture and I screenshot it, it at least lets the person know, hey, I'm sorry, your picture exists forever out there in the world. So the big one, Snapchat. Users can take photos, record videos, add text and drawings, and send them to control lists of recipients. My sister has a name for this word. It's a different four-letter word instead of snap in front of chat, because that's what she thought it was for. And that's what a lot of people think it's for sending nude photos. There's Whisper, which they talked about. Whisper, does anyone here know what Whisper is? Anyone ever use Whisper?
I know what it is, I've never used it.
You've never used it, okay. Well, Whisper is basically what I was talking about. It's that it allows you to anonymously stand on a mountainside and say whatever you want, right? This can get problematic for several reasons. There is a case where folks who are going through depression, right? They post Whisper and they're able to find people who have those same feelings. But we don't know if all those people are age appropriate, right? Whisper has also been used as a way to cyberbully other people. I want to say something bad about someone, but I don't want my name attached to it. Whisper is the way to go. But again, I don't want to downplay Whisper, because Whisper's been great for a lot of people. Whisper is a great way for people who are just having a really crappy day. For adults, I think it's the best. You just wake up in the morning, you're like, you know what? That dude who cut me off in line, who cut in front of me on the highway. And then you go about your day, and it's a way to kind of let go of that stress. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it can get complicated. Yik Yak, a social media smartphone application. This one's location-based, which is why a lot of parents don't like it. So like this has been popular in schools, and that's why usually in a lot of high schools right now are having Yik Yak conversations, because people can up and down vote. The power of the up and down vote is a very, very interesting psychological phenomenon that is still being studied. Has anyone ever heard of the term Facebook depression? Okay, I'll tell you about Facebook. Facebook depression is, like we talked about, I want people to see a certain part of my life, but I'm not showing you all of my life. Some people like my Facebook because I will share the good and the bad and the ugly. I like to mix it all up so I don't give a false impression of who I am. However, most people, like I have a couple of friends who I have no idea what they do, but every time I turn on their Facebook, they're like on a lake somewhere, or chilling by a beach, or they're like hang gliding, and I'm like, wow, this person must live the most amazing life. My life sucks. Right? My life sucks. I go to work. That's what I do. And so that's a part of Facebook depression. Another part of Facebook depression is the reason that we all want to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. So you put out that statement on Facebook, I just bought a brand new cheesecake, whatever, right? Or I just baked a brand new cake, and you only get one like. But your friend, who bakes the same cake, but like puts a star on it, gets 100 likes. Well, it must mean that all of our shared friends don't like me as much as they like that other person. When really, it could be that your post didn't show up in most people's feeds. It could be 100 million things. The fact of the matter is, and this is what I like to tell people about Facebook, is they've done studies. No one cares what you're doing on Facebook, really. If someone likes what you're doing, it's really the most passive thought ever. No one is thinking that hard about you. But no, really. I like to tell my friends, I'm like, hey, no one cares about you that much. Everyone is self-involved. We're all too busy posting our own pictures online to make sure everyone else thinks we're okay. Don't worry about whether you're not doing okay. Okay. So now we get into the things that make everyone uncomfortable. The chatting, meeting, dating apps and sites. I think there's one that everybody knows. Can anyone tell me one of these chatting or meeting or dating apps might be?
Grindr, Tinder.
Give me a couple of them. Grindr, Tinder. OkCupid. Yes, they are endless. I think one of my friends who works in the industry says, for every type of person, there is a dating app. I just found out there's a new one called White People Meet now.
Oh my God. Have you seen the one about farmers?
Yeah, there's farmers only.
There's one where you only see the other person's pet.
Yeah.
Like for pet owners, so you like, if you like the other person's pet and they like yours, then you meet up.
A pet can make or break a relationship.
That's true.
So here are a couple of them. Meet Me. This is not a dating app. The reason I combine dating and meeting apps, Aziz Ansari talks about this. More people use dating apps as meeting apps than dating apps. One of the more popular ones, which I'll show you, is Tinder. Everyone's heard of Tinder. So Tinder, what I find really funny about Tinder is it was invented by one of the worst people in the world. His intention was, he was like, I got on OkCupid, he literally says, I got on OkCupid, and I couldn't find enough hot girls. So I created an app so I could find hot girls, right? And I'm like, wow, you are awful. You are an awful human being. Why would you make this? But what ended up happening was because of the exclusivity of how Tinder works, that with other dating apps, I would say, I like you, then a message would come to the woman I'm sending a message to saying, I like you, and then I could just start messaging you all day, every day. Hey, how are you? What are you doing? Da, da, da. And so a lot of women are being harassed through online dating sites. Whereas with Tinder, the harassment was brought down a little bit because then we both had to we both have to swipe right before I could talk to you. So not just any man could talk to me. So you're seeing with women, these types of sites, the swipe apps are becoming more popular because there's more control. So there's Meet Me, I don't know how to pronounce this. Omegle? Yeah, some kid told me about this one. I had never used it before. Omegle, it allows you to communicate with other people. It's also now location based, and it's you are a person and stranger is the other person, and then you just talk. You and a stranger chat. Scout is location based as well. I'm just walking by and then I get like a buzz in my phone and it says someone else who has Scout is near you, and then we can go hang out. I've used Scout when I moved to Philadelphia. I used Scout quite a bit as I was like, when I go to Center City, just so I could have people tell me where things were or just have someone to sit with because I travel a lot. You know, I'm here in SLD this weekend. I'm up here this weekend. So these apps, you know, I don't want to...
Is that one international?
Yes.
No. Well, that'd be great, yeah. Find somebody and say, hey, you local? What's the best restaurant here? Or something.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
So like, again, these apps, they're not all made for nefarious, they're not all intended to be nefarious, and they have uses. You know, but as you can imagine, I could also end up meeting someone who's very scary. Tinder, I'm actually having to deal with a Tinder case in SLD right now. You know, I just talked about it. It's a dating app, and it allows people to control who they talk to a little bit more. I'll give you a different Tinder story than the one that's going on right now. So, Tinder is I like to have Tinder conversations with young adults a lot. When I do this presentation with young adults, one of the first things I say to the cisgender heterosexual man in the audience is, ask how old the person you're talking to is first, right? Before you say, hey, what's going on? If the person doesn't look like, if they look like they might be under the age of 18, ask, because there are a lot of teenagers on Tinder. Tinder is, here's why. Because it works as a game. It's a fun game. If you're someone who needs a tiny bit of like self-affirmation, there's nothing more affirming than sitting down and playing this game where all these beautiful people keep saying, I like you, I like you. They don't even say it. They just, the machine tells you, this beautiful person thinks you're beautiful too.
On the app, after I've heard, after you match with somebody, it says, do you want to talk or do you want to keep playing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to what?
Do you want to talk
Or
do you want to keep playing?
also it's
Meaning finding
actually-
other people to say I like
It's
you.
literally a game.
It's
Yes.
so that they set it up, like I've heard, like a game.
Right. No, I'll tell you, I've used Tinder, and yeah, it's like a game. And you know, I've now these days I sit around and I'll watch people in airports. And I'll watch people in airports doing this, and you know, I know exactly what they're doing. Right? They're bored and they just want to see, hey, well, maybe there's someone in this airport who might want to chat with me or whatever. So now we come to the end. Given all that we've talked about, I hope that you folks can walk out of here and start thinking about ways that you can covenant with yourselves, covenant with your youth groups, covenant with your own teenagers, about what kind of person do they want to be online. Don't ask don't have a conversation about what your specific activities are, but what kind of person do you want to be? What is your online persona? For example, my online persona on Facebook, I try really hard not to denigrate people. Like, I will argue with you up and down till noon, but I will not swear at you. I will not denigrate you, right? Because that's not the type of person I am in real life, and I don't want to pretend to be that person in fake life. Or not fake life, in my second life, in my online life. Usually, I would have people like break into groups and write a covenant, and y'all can do that if you want, but really what the purpose of the slide and the purpose of this workshop is I want y'all to start thinking about how, if you could covenant with your youth, about how they want to be online, what would that look like? What would you want to say? Do you want your youth, and ask your youth, do you want anonymity? Do you want to be someone else online? Do you want to be someone totally different than who you are? That's fine, okay? But who is that person? What is that person like? How do you separate yourself in real life from that person in your online life? And I think when you start having those conversations, they're much more dynamic, and they're less about banning what apps kids are using, or it doesn't even require the parent to know to be to survey, literally overwatch what their children are doing all the time. So, any questions?
Well, one of the things I struggled with is what to do with, right, I have teens, when their friends, maybe they were youth group friends, or maybe their other friends, friend me on Facebook. Or didn't friend me on Facebook, but their other friends were friending me on Facebook. And I finally decided that, and I'm curious if other people have insights on this. What I decided is, if a youth asks to be my friend, I will friend them, but I will never ask a youth. Now, my only concern about that is I have had youth come to me and say, well, you're friends with so-and-so, why aren't you friends with me? And so if they say that to me, I can say, because you didn't ask me. But there are probably youth who are feeling like they don't have the confidence to say that to me, and are feeling somewhat offended that I'm not friends with them on Facebook. So I feel like no matter how I do it,
well, I think just be candid. I'm literally just say that to the youth, like, hey, I
was just going to say the same
just
thing.
make a general announcement.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's...
I feel like then I'm asking for them to friend me almost.
Then you get a ton of friend requests.
Yeah, you will.
Well, you don't have to.
I mean, I'm not like saying, gee, I want you all to friend me.
No, you don't have to.
It's just, guys, if you want to friend me, I'm good, but I'm not going to ask you.
Yeah.
Like some of my son, my son is older now, he's 19, but I've been on Facebook for a while. But some of his friends have sent me friend requests, but I make them acquaintances. So they won't see my regular friend posts.
Nice.
Because I'll do everything but acquaintances.
Totally works.
Oh.
My mother.
Create groups in there of, you can categorize the people who you are friends with, so that when you post something, it goes out to
I'm aware of that. I wouldn't post anything online that I wasn't comfortable with anyone seeing.
Right.
So that's kind of my view. And in some sense, as we talk about this, I mean, if these youth are friends with me on Facebook, hopefully I'd be a good role model for them as to reasonable ways to behave on Facebook. I don't know that I am, but I'm trying to be.
Funny, my mother refuses to add me on Facebook. She at first, when we first started, she was like, why won't you add me? Why won't you add me? And then I think her work friends started I'm friends with her work friends' kids. We were about the same age. So they would add me, and then their parents would and then they would repost my stuff. And so my mom started seeing what I was posting on there, and she's like, no, I don't want, because my mom runs a school, she runs several schools and is a principal. She's like, no, I don't want to be associated. I don't want people to associated. Nothing too bad. But but we have, and when I tell people that, they're like, oh really, you and your mom must not have a great kind of relationship. You can't be Facebook. It's like, no, actually we have a great relationship because we're not Facebook friends. And because she's like, the way that she put it to me, she's like, I want you to be as expressive as you want. But I don't want to have a mini heart attack every time I look at my Facebook feed. So that's sort of the relationship we negotiated. My sister and I, we are acquaintances because I post a lot of not anti-Christian, but not anti-Christian stuff, but liberal religious stuff. She is a very conservative evangelical Christian. She doesn't want to read all of that. And that's sort of, again, what I would like to point to is like, what we talked about is, don't think of instant messaging, apps, any of this stuff as this monolith that you can't take on. Think of it as just a tool, another way to talk. It's just like writing a note in class. It's just like becoming a new friend, becoming friends with anyone else. You start with work on your individual relationships with people, and then the online relationship stuff will work itself out. Any other questions? Comments? Concerns? Apps you didn't know about? Apps that you think I should know about that I didn't talk about? Because sometimes that'll happen. Someone will like,
I like Meetup.
what is it?
Meetup.
yeah.
I don't know what that is.
That's-
Please tell me.
That's an activity app, so like if you're interested, like I like dancing. So you could look up.
Oh, Meetup.
Meetup.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I like that app, that's a cool app.
Yeah, I use Meetup as well. Meetup is actually a great way to do if your churches are having young adult groups. I say don't start a young adult group. Just do a Meetup. That's how you start there first. If you can get people to show up to the Meetup, then you have a viable young adult group. If you can't, then don't even bother.
So what you're saying is a lot of young people use Meetup? I mean, I don't consider myself, I'm like a.
Well, here's the thing. What is that even like to me? I'm like, what does that even mean anymore, right? Because it used to be that the kids were on Facebook, right, and the adults weren't on Facebook. Now the adults are on Facebook, but the adults weren't acting like the kids on Facebook. Now the adults act like the kids on Facebook. Just turn on a Trump war argument. And,
Well, I just feel like, I'm an old person, so kids aren't using it because I found Meetup, and I don't know, it's just like, they're not using it.
so that's the thing. That's the thing. And let's talk about that. That's the thing. Even on the news story, they talk about that. Like kids are always trying to find new ways to escape the rest of us. So there's some of that, right? Kids in high school are going to do some of that, but in general, these folks want to be a part of our community too. That's what they were talking about on the video. Is that they don't just want to talk to their friends in high school. They want to talk to someone who's outside of high school. I try not to think about it, things like that anymore. Like, this is just a tool that we're all using. One generation was just later at using the tool, but we all use the tool the same ways. But yeah, Meetup is something that a lot of folks use. Another online meeting app that I used to use, Foursquare, is sometimes used by youth, especially in some of the young adult groups. Foursquare is a great place to kind of find what places do the Unitarians haunt. So, like, if I ever go to Boston, I can look at my Foursquare and I know that, like, my seminarian friends go to this bar, this bar, this bar, and this bar. I don't have to send out a text saying I'm in town if I don't want to, like, be assaulted by a bunch of come see me's. I can just know I can go to this bar and someone might show up. So it's just a tool.
So how does Foursquare know that people are going?
You check in.
You check in. Again, it's that self-reporting thing.
Yeah.
People,
So
when
it's a
you
location
arrive at the
app
bar,
that's-
you check
that
in on the
has
app
your
and
friends
say,
on there? How does that
I
work?
bet.
That's interesting.
Foursquare is not new. Foursquare actually got beat out by the other apps that I just talked about. But Foursquare, it came around the same time as Twitter. And the idea is that by location, you would say check in at places and say, like, if you have a favorite coffee shop or whatever, you could check in. And then you could sort of compete with other people so that you could be like for example, you could get an award if you go to the same bar every day. You could become king of the bar because, like, that's your favorite haunt or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, people check in with Facebook now too.
Yeah, that's the thing. The thing was, Foursquare was a great idea,
Right.
so all the other tech companies adopted it and put Foursquare out of business. So that's it. That's all I got for you folks. If you have any questions, I'll be around. If you want to talk about any of this stuff, I can share even more stories, and I have tons to share. All right. Thank you for showing up.